talking about Genesis chapter 5, verse 29. And that's what I kind of wanted to show right now. And I'm going to put it up on the screen. And let's see, show thumbnail. And there we go. I'm going to roll back just a little bit. So I'll have it up here on the screen too if y'all want to see it. That Genesis 5:29, is that what I just said? That Lamech, well, 28, when Lamech had lived 182 years, still hard for us to imagine, isn't it? That he fathered a son and called his name Noah, saying, out of the ground that the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands. So, and that's not the exact description of that. It's the idea is this one will, New American Standard says, this one will give us rest. You got the Amplified, Phil? Is that what yours is?
No, this is new. I do.
Okay. It's, what does it say there? It says,
28 or 29? He named him Noah, saying, this one shall bring us relief and comfort from our work and the grievous toil of our hands through the ground being cursed by the Lord.
Okay, he'll give us relief and comfort. But the idea is that Noah's name means rest. And it still goes all the way back to the idea that there's going to be one that brings us relief. This starts in Genesis. And when God starts in the first few chapters of Genesis, when God told the woman that your seed is going to come from you and crush the seed of the serpent, crush his head. And so get that. I mean, it's a theme to keep going, that there's already this prophecy by God, this baby prophecy, that one is coming. Somebody is coming to change the whole course of events. And so we talked about when Cain was born, that Eve said, look, I've gotten a man child, the Lord. But it wasn't going to be Cain. And then she said, after that, Seth was born Adam. Yeah, and Adam had lived 130 years. He became the father of a son in his own likeness, according to his own image, and that was Seth. So now they're no longer like in the garden, the creation, the image of God, the image of man. I mean, man is the image of God, to be an imager of God. Now man really becomes an imager of man. Except for those. I thought that was mine. Isn't that funny? You get to where you hear those things everywhere, and you start looking around. And so we're back here in Genesis. That idea is still going, and then plus when we were talking the other day, to me it makes so much more sense now when you realize the lifespan. And I don't know if you heard any of that when we were talking about how long Adam lived, all the way to Lamech, Noah's, wasn't it Lamech? Yeah. All the way to Lamech. So they were able to tell, no, this is what God had told us. This is what God has said. There's one's going to come. There's going to come a seed. There's going to be an offspring, but it's going to be here's the idea. It's going to be a specific offspring. There's going to be one. It's not going to be that all man is going to fix the problem. You know what I mean? So now it comes down to Noah. Lamech has a son, calls his name Noah, and his name means rest, saying this one will give us rest from our work. So then we move on, and we kind of got into this barely last time, that in chapter 6. And by the way, I do want to tell you this. When you start digging into the times and you start looking at the dates of how long someone lived, when they had a son, when they didn't have a son, it gets real hard to date all this. So even those things that I've given you You know, they're don't ever think they're all exact or that somebody's got it all figured out. Because even when they go back and try to go backwards from anything that they think they know of in history, when they start going back to try to find the date, there's still all kinds of problems in finding it. And a lot of that is the Bible was not always specific, it was general. Or for instance, in a lot of the genealogies, it doesn't list every person sometimes.
Right.
And so you may have a generation or two that is missed. And so the time look at Genesis 5:32. Now there's only one thing we can probably figure out from this is that Noah was 500 years old, and Noah became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Were they triplets? You see what I mean? He was 500 years old and but nobody that I know of or that I've read thinks that he had triplets. And so you can go back and sometimes you can find dates by going, I'm always thinking to the right in my Bible or to the left in my Bible. So you either go back older or come newer. And sometimes you'll find statements that are made that give you a clue, even though they're talking about way back in the past. Okay. There's a lot of talking about that. So we look back up at our scripture. When man, in chapter 6, verse 1, it says, now when it came about, when men began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he is also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. And in my margin, it says, talking about verse 3, it says that my spirit will not abide with man. In his going astray, he is flesh. That comes from the original language. In his going astray, he is flesh. He's just fallen man. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. And the idea there is that it's going to be 120 years till God sends the flood. It doesn't seem to be a projection of how old man's going to live. It seems more to fall in line with, in 120 years, the flood's going to come. So I'm going to end this. And I wanted to say this too, because we kind of talked about it a minute ago, that the idea that the verse 2, the sons of God saw the daughters of men, there seems to be the idea, and I've heard this taught, I've read it in places, that there were demons that intermarried with the human race and created it. But I think Phil and I were talking about it too, that, well, all of us were, that I think more likely it's the idea that the daughters of Cain, who rejected God, mixed and married in with the daughters of Seth, the daughters of the ones that were believers, and or the ones that respected God, and that they, I think, intermarried and created all kinds of issues because they kept going back to themselves. I mean, this is what they had done. They had rebelled in the garden, and as they did, they became the ones that could determine their future in their own mind. And so this is all that man keeps doing. But there were those that believed. You remember that when it said that they began to call, this is the end of chapter 4, verse 26, the men began to call the Lord Yahweh, or call him Yahweh at that time. And that was when Seth had his son Enosh, that men were calling on the name of the Lord as Yahweh. They were calling on him as Yahweh. Okay, so we're trying to move through here. I want to come down to verse 5. It says, then the Lord saw, let me scroll this up, verse 5. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And this is a hard one for us, this next verse. The Lord was sorry. And this one says the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I'll blot out man whom I've created from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things and to birds of the sky, for I'm sorry that I've made them. And the whole idea is the whole creation is affected. Have y'all know that, right? That all creation was affected by the fall. Sin entered into
physical death.
It entered into all of creation. Yes.
What about like rocks and stuff? Can they be saved?
You know what? It's not about salvation. It's the idea that death comes. It's the whole creation is dying. You know, at that point, you could say that. Yeah, I think so.
That makes sense to me.
And so it's like, and so this is what he said. I'm sorry that I've made them, but you got to go back and look and think. Let's think a little bit, because it's like that's like God saying, yeah, I wish I hadn't done that. Or, you know, and because we've already been talking about the plan before creation, that this is what I'm going to do, and that man's going to need a redeemer. They're going to, come on, I'm going to redeem man. So it cannot be sorrow as I'm sorry. You know, a sorrow that I'm trying to make that. Where's my deal again? Now I lost me. Man, isn't that crazy?
Oh, while we're waiting for Bruce to get his camera back,
thank you.
I would like to let you all know that the average human life expectancy in the world as of today is 71 years.
There you go. But listen, do you know how they figure that? How?
Well, I read it on Wikipedia.
Huh?
Every idea I typed in average life human expectancy per country. It shows all the countries 71 years. It's creeping up actually exponentially.
Yeah, it is. The most fascinating thing, there's a fascinating video at gapminder.com.
Oh, I love that.
That shows the statistics and exactly how they figure life expectancy, and it's very, very interesting. It's not what you think. Gapminder.com.
I finally got to see it.
You did?
Yeah.
Did you see that particular one? Was that a good one?
Yeah.
Yes. It makes you go, I knew that, but I didn't know that.
You need to have it presented before you to truly have a conviction about believing it. Oh yeah, if someone say, you know, that's like, even if a lot of people say like, oh, I don't know, it's like, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like, unless I know for myself,
Yes.
everyone can say everything. Everybody can say,
yes.
You know, this or that about anything. Until I see it for myself, I don't really have conviction about that. So yeah.
There we go. I still don't get why I'm up here and not down here. Man.
I'll figure it out later for you.
Okay. Is that's the recording's gonna be real weird. Looks like. But anyway, so let's go back, because we're back to where we were in the scripture, where Genesis 6, and that God was sorry that He's made them. God, you know what? I think it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if the idea is like, I hate this. I wish it wasn't. You know what I mean? I know it's got to be this way. That kind of thing. I know that God is, when you think of sin equals death. That's totally opposed to God. God is,
or is it,
righteousness, and yes, it's the opposite of Him. And when you look at righteousness is the opposite of sin, righteousness is life. God is life. God is not death.
What if He created sins to show that we needed Him?
What if He did? But the idea is that regardless, sin is is the opposite of him. And so the idea that men would live, okay, put it this way. If he is the creator of life, then to see men live in death has got to be sorrowful. Well, I mean, I'm saying in my mind, how can we put that same kind of, I know he has emotions, but how about this? But he's not emotional.
He's not a PMS.
Is that a way to say it? That, you know, I get hung up in my emotions, and yet God is not doing things on an emotional
snapping like that,
an emotional binge or, you know, something like that. He expresses his emotions. So at this point, anyway, I don't know if that helps any on the idea of God being sorry or not, but it's like you could say, hey, isn't there godly sorrow? That's a thought there too. That do you think God wants people to live in death, or that he desires to see that? So if we look at it like that, then yeah, I can say that he's sorry that this is the way it is. That I'm sorry I made it. However, it's not the end of it. Thank the Lord. You know, there's a lot more. Because the very next verse even says, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And we talked about this last week, was that what was that favor? Where did that come from? How did Noah find favor with the Lord? And by faith. That's it. And we have no idea in the world he was living in. Now think about it. Because by the time of the flood, he was the only one in his little family left. The only one that found favor with the Lord. The only one of faith at that point. So in that world that he was living in, can you imagine? I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, it was falling apart. So, but get that in your mind that here from the very beginning, all the way back, it's faith, believe. Grace, mercy comes from our belief, our trust. That's it. So Noah found favor in the Lord. And then we've got, well, listen what it says. These are the records of the generation. This is verse 9 of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his time. Noah walked with God. And Noah became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth was corrupt in the sight of God. The earth was filled with violence. And God saw it as corrupt, and he says in 13, says to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them, and behold, I'm about to destroy them with the earth. He's going to use the earth itself against them, you know. Hey, remember we talked about this, that the earth that Adam was to, because we said something about this last week. We were to subdue the earth, and then at the fall, the earth even turned against man. Now it's going to bring forth thorns and thistles. And for you to bring something from the ground, you're going to have to sweat and toil and work. So now even the earth has turned against you. So when you go back to the creation, everything God saw and said, he said it's good. And now the earth itself even is against you. So he says, I'm going to destroy them with the earth. Interesting, isn't it? So he says, make for yourself an ark in verse 14. And he tells him everything. Go for wood, make rooms in it, covered inside and out with pitch, and gives him the links of it and the windows in it and all that. And he says, I'm going to bring, in 17, I'm bringing a flood of water upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life. From under heaven, everything that is on the earth shall perish. 18, but I shall establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you, and of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every kind to the ark to keep them alive with you. And he tells the details, male and female, birds of their kind, animals of their kind, creeping things, and 2 of every kind will come to you, keep them alive. Take for yourself some of all food which is edible, and gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you. And in 22, Noah did according to all God had commanded him, so he did it. And then in chapter 7, the Lord said to Noah, enter the ark, you and all your household, for you alone I've seen to be righteous before me in this time. This whole generation. And once again, the righteousness. Get it in your mind. You're the only one who trusts me. You're the only one who believes. And he tells him again the same thing about what to take in there. And in chapter 4, he says, 7 more days I'll send rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and I'll blot out from the face of the land. Y'all know how long Noah was in the ark?
1.5 years.
I don't think it was quite 1.5, but it was over. It was a year at least. We'll go back. Was it 1.5?
I don't know. I just took a stab. I thought I heard it one time.
It was a while because it rained 40 days and 40 nights, but that was just the beginning.
I had to evaporate.
Yeah, because it had
it
covered the land.
Had to go back.
But we'll go back to verse 6, chapter 7, verse 6. It says, and Noah was 600 years old when the flood of water came upon the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him entered the ark because of the water of the flood. And they took all the animals. That's all right there. And let's see, then it begins to give the dates and the times in verse 11. Verse 12, the rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And on the very same day that it began to rain, they all went into the ark. Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives. And they entered the ark.
He was in the ark for 370 days.
370? Yeah, it was a little over a year. And then verse 16 and into 17, the Lord closed it. He took all the animals in, entered as God had commanded him, and the Lord closed it behind him. And then the flood came upon the earth for 40 days. And it goes, just the details of the flood. And it's in Poland, what was the city we were at? I can't remember the name of the city. We went to stay with friends, and then was that in their hometown? It may have been, but there was this water fountain called the Deluge, I think is the name of it, and it had been partially destroyed in World War II by the Germans, and they just they keep working on it. They're trying, and it's just about, or maybe it is finished. I'm not sure, but it's an amazing fountain that the water is spraying everywhere, and it's got a giant bear. I thought
bears were giant already.
It's got let me see if I can find this really quick. I may have this on here. Where would it be? No, I think it's on my phone. Let's see.
You got a bear on your phone?
Kirk, you're wearing me out, brother.
I'm just helping you keep in your mind.
No, you're wearing me out.
All right.
Look here. Okay, hold on a minute. What I'm gonna do is, no, I don't need to hold on. I can go, and I'm gonna. There, I'm gonna share the screen with them so they can see that. That's over here's a man wrestling with a snake. There's y'all forgive the artwork here. There's a woman and a baby. There's another man there. Let's see if I can do another one. There's a bear carrying something over here. And there's, I don't know, I think it's a lion or something up here, but it's an amazing, there, you can see the bear. It's got a lion or something in his mouth. Oh, it's hard to see it here, isn't it? Can y'all kind of see it?
Hmm.
There's a lion's got somebody in its mouth. Or here's the lion right here. I'm not sure what. No, it's a man carrying somebody up there. There's another man climbing up, trying to get. Anyway, it just gives you a real, especially with the water, you're seeing people like trying to get to higher ground and animals and everything trying to get out of the flood.
That's the interpretation of the flood?
It's just called the deluge.
Oh, it's deluge, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of what would be happening during the flood. I guess that's it. But hey, finally. What is that, man? I don't understand why I got two of them on there. I may have two meetings going at the same time. I don't know. But anyway, that thought of the flood coming and okay, can't minimize that, but I wanted to get that kind of. Yeah, we'll close that window. Get that one out of there. Okay. This was an amazing thing that's happened in history. And by the way, the flood is one of the things that is in more ancient writings from more peoples in the world. It's probably one of the most universal. In fact, they call it the universal flood, or don't you know what I'm talking about? It's in ancient histories all over the place, and you're like, and some of them are very, very almost identical. They may have a different name for them, for the man, Noah or whatever. But it is pretty fascinating that these
different cultures have the same story.
Thank you. It's exactly what I wanted to say. These cultures, I can't think of those words.
That's weird because you would think, as much as, as believers, we are hated by the world, that they would not want to. All right. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting at. I don't know how to explain it.
I do, except when you go back and look at these cultures, they're not thinking Christianity.
Right.
They're not thinking, it's just their ancient history themselves.
How were those writings of their time there? It was before the Bible was written.
Right.
Okay, got it. That's it. There you
go. They're ancient cultures. I mean, that we find when they're doing archaeological stuff, they'll find some tablet on there that's got a picture, of a flood and everybody drowning and in a boat. Only a box, more likely. But look at chapter 8, verse 1. We finished then with the water prevailed upon the earth 150 days. But that was the water there. But now the earth is so totally saturated that it's going to be a long time before Noah can come out. So chapter 8, verse 1, but God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark, and God caused a wind to pass over the earth, and the water subsided. And so the fountains of the deep and the floodgates of the sky were closed, and the rain from the sky was restrained, and the water receded steadily from the earth. And at the end of 150 days, the water decreased, but then everything's destroyed. And you know what? It's amazing. Have y'all seen what, I don't even mean what just rushing water will do, but in places where there's floods and stuff to where it's really spread out, it's amazing what a flood will do. You wouldn't necessarily think it would destroy all the plants and everything else, but it can definitely do that. And I think about it too. Look, I don't have the answers for this, but in Colorado, when I was out there at I don't remember, it was Black Canyon on the Gunnison or someplace like that. You get to one of these lookouts and you look across here, and they've got a big old bronze plaque right here that you can read, and it explains the top layer. You can see layers in this 2,000-foot bank across the canyon. And so you're looking at this wall over there, and you see these layers like a layer cake. Mm-hmm. And they can explain this layer, what that is, and then that second layer, where that came from. And they can explain those bottom layers and that bottom. But then there's this massive middle one, and they go, well, this is the unknown. You know, we can't define. We don't know what this is, where it came from. And look, I'm not saying I know where any of it came from or how any of it got there, but it's always been amazing to me that the Grand Canyon was formed by a river. I don't know if you understand anything about flat land, but if you're at the top of the land, if this table, if we ran some water on it, it would just run off. It wouldn't form a river in that flat land. You know what I'm saying? And for a river to form something, it's got to be falling. And I've always wondered how it started. If it started up on flat land, that little river, it wasn't falling enough to, I don't know if y'all understand what I'm saying or if my thinking's all off. I'm just saying, I think there's so many geological things that we explain the best way we can do it with our science and everything else. And I'm thinking, man, if the earth upended itself, even in God's creation and everything else. Hey, Shane.
Hey, brother.
How you doing, man?
Fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I'll get off. I just want you to know I'm finally here.
I'm glad. I thought about you today.
All right, brother.
I'm glad you're here. We're in Genesis, man, chapter 8.
Thank you. I jumped on late. All right.
Okay, man.
Bye.
All right. Bye. But just my thought is if the earth is if the earth is now, how's he down on the bottom and me not?
I don't know. I didn't do that.
I know. Hey, I got something going on here. I don't know what it is.
You me back out?
No, I want you to stay right there.
Dadgummit, I didn't mean to stop all this.
He's in his boat. Are you in your boat?
Oh, wait a second. Now, click speaker view real quick.
Yeah, I'm in the boat.
That's cool.
I'm in the boat.
I think whoever's talking, it gets the prominence of the.
Yeah. Hey, Shane.
Yeah.
Turn your mic off. That's what it is.
How the heck do I turn my mic
Here,
off?
never mind. I will.
Thank you.
There you go.
Who's there?
Now, did that do it?
Yeah, he's muted. You're not. Click.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Shane?
A little louder.
He's shaking his head. Yeah.
Man, what happened today? I have no idea. Kurt, can you come mess with it?
Hear this. In a weasel.
That is just just strange, man. Because the recording will be. It doesn't work that way.
Watch the test for a second.
Do what?
Maybe it's the camera.
Here, I'm gonna scoot you over there just a little bit.
Where is Shane?
Florida.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So.
I don't know. I'm stupid.
Okay, so chapter 8, verse 1, that God remembered Noah and all the beasts. We already said all that, and the water subsided. And then verse 5 in chapter 8 is that the water decreased steadily until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. And this is where we go back down further. Remember, he put out the birds, the doves, to find out if he could find some land. And
Watch what I did. Right click. Cancel the spotlight video. I go there.
Okay,
Right click.
I got you.
Spotlight video. Now you will be dominant camera.
Okay.
As long as if I'm interpreting that term right.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
Spotlight being on one person.
okay. So he finally sent out the dove where it came back. I know I'm kind of running through this pretty fast, but thank you, Kurt. But he sent the dove out, and nothing. At first it didn't bring anything back, and then finally, it had in verse 11. I think isn't it verse 11? Let's see. He waited another 7 days, and the dove came back with freshly picked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the water was abated from the earth. And now this is kind of weird because I was thinking, well, wouldn't he be able to look out the window and see all that? But then, let me find it. It says, wait a minute, after the dove brought back the olive leaf, verse 12, he waited yet another 7 days and sent out the dove, but she did not return to him again. Now look, 13. Now it came about in the 601st year, in the first month, on the first of the month, the water was dried up from the earth. Now remember, Noah went into the ark at 600. He was 600 years old. So we've got, like Kurt said, about a year and a month. The water was dried up. Then Noah removed the covering of the ark. You see, there was a covering over that thing, whether it was skins. Remember what it said? God said to make a covering and put it over the ark. So that baby was sealed up, man. I mean, it was. So he barely had a little window, and probably, actually, some of those old Bible Sunday school deals we saw where it was a way up high little window, under I don't know what it was under. But at any rate, he took the covering off the ark and looked, and behold, the surface of the ground was dried up. So somehow now he sees it. I mean, it sounds like behold means look, see it. And so it came about in the 601st year, in the first month, when he did all that. And then 15, here we start moving into where this is pretty important stuff in Genesis, that God speaks to Noah. He says, go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you, and bring all the animals out. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him, and all the beasts and creeping things and birds and everything went out. And Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled, in verse 21, the soothing aroma. And the Lord said to himself, and this is big right here too, I will never again curse the ground on account of man. For the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth, and I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, this is one to maybe remember this, you guys. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. And I remember thinking, and if I watch the news enough now, I can actually go there now. Well, we won't even be able to have food. We won't even be able to grow food. We won't even be able to have. He says here, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. And it challenges you in even thinking, could I believe that? Do I? You know what I mean? Have y'all ever? Man, I remember thinking
that. Depends who says it.
Huh?
It depends on who's saying it and what it said.
Right. But I'm saying, okay, but let's say we believe it, God says it. But then I turn right around, and I grow up during the time, Phil and I were talking about this the other day, when our school was a bomb shelter and our church was a bomb shelter. They stored water and crackers. I remember that was a big thing. They had barrels of crackers like that would really have provided for us. Did y'all ever see any of those places where they had barrels of saltine crackers? I guess it's because they had salt and iodine in them. Not much other nutrition other than that. They should have barrels of carrots or something. Saltine. Or what?
Carrots. Have you ever tasted a stale saltine?
Oh, I know. Oh. Well, you can mix them in water, and maybe use that water and eat them like that. But the idea that, man, okay, what's God doing here? And God is revealing himself even more to Noah as we move into chapter 9. We've got this is a big chapter here. So let's look up. Let's look at this on the screen. I need to, let's see. I need to go to Genesis 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth and on every bird of the sky, with everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are given. Every moving thing that is alive shall be food to you. I give all to you as I gave the green plant. Only you shall not eat flesh with its life. This is big to me. That is its blood. Let me see, Amplified. Anybody says that, but you shall not eat flesh with the life of it, which is its blood. That's a pretty big statement. And when you really look into this in the scripture, we see that, you remember what the first thing that Noah did when he did the sacrifice? He sacrificed animals. He sacrificed animals. The blood goes back all the way to Cain and Abel. It was Abel's sacrifice that was pleasing to God. The recognition that the life is in the blood, that the covering of blood, life given, and then look what else he says. He says that surely, this is verse 5, I will require. He says, and for your lifeblood. This says it different in the ESV. I'm gonna change this to New American Standard. There we go. And I need to make that a little bit bigger, so it'll make more sense. Turn that off. He says, only you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is its blood. Surely I will require your lifeblood. From every beast I will require it, and from every man's brother I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. This was, we've made this statement before too, that this goes all the way back when we're thinking of in modern times. A lot of the argument for capital punishment has been that it deters crime, and to me, I say that where God says, I will never again destroy earth because the intent of man's heart is evil from the beginning. That's why he said he was going to send the flood, because the intent of man's heart was always evil.
Yeah, he just wiped out all the humanity. Noah and his family were only good. He just didn't want it to start over again.
But
probably,
but the idea is, yes, I do know what you're saying. I think the idea here is that man's heart, look, unregenerated man in unbelief, his heart is continually evil. And punishment is not going to change that. Threat is not going to change that. The idea that I might lose my life is not going to change me taking yours. If I want something now, I want it, and if you're in my way, I'll kill you, whether they threaten me, with my life or not. And so the idea is that the reason that we don't shed another man's blood is in verse 6. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. In other words, you don't touch anybody else because they're made in the image of God. That's why you don't murder. It's not a deterrent. It doesn't stop anybody from doing anything. In fact, we find out later, the more laws you put out there, the more lawbreakers you have. So at this point in their life, there was hardly anything. Just God right here, actually, this is one of the first things we hear God say about, you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is the blood in it. This, boom. So far, he hadn't said much else. But in verse 7, he says, as for you, be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth abundantly and multiply in it. Then God spoke to Noah and to his sons. Now this is big. This is chapter 9, verse 8. This is a good place. I'm glad we're at least this far, because this is important to get to today. This is the covenant that God makes with Noah. So God spoke to Noah and to his son, saying, Now behold, I myself do establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, with every living creature that is with you, the birds and the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, of all that comes out of the ark, even every beast of the earth. He says, I will establish my covenant with you, and all flesh shall never again be cut off by water of the flood. Neither shall there again be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the sign of the covenant which I am making between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all successive generations. I set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. It shall come about when I bring a cloud over the earth that the bow will be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And never again shall the water become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the cloud, then I will look upon it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant which I've established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. Okay, that's a lot to read, but I wanted you, boom, there it is. When you see that rainbow today, let it be a reminder there's a covenant that God made that is still in effect. I mean, it's a...
God's promise is forever.
Yeah, God's promise is forever. Hey, okay, this is, as we're building up here, understand the covenant with Adam was not dependent. The creation covenant, God says, I'm going to create. He didn't ask anybody. He didn't say, I'll create if you'll be my people. I'll create. He didn't say any of that. He said, I'm going to create. I'm going to be the Redeemer. I'm going to save man. He comes to Adam, and the only test of the covenant with Adam was, here, there's this one thing. There's one thing. You can do anything. Live, multiply, enjoy, work in the garden, be fruitful, do anything you want to do. But there's one thing. I want you to be obedient to me. I want you to listen to me and don't do that one thing. And they didn't even notice anything till an enemy comes along and suggests that you might want to take a look at that. So they take a look at that. But there was no other requirements. There was none. I mean, this was God saying, I impose myself on you. I give you everything. There's nothing I withhold from you. In fact, interesting thing, he didn't withhold the tree from them. He just said not to do it. It wasn't anything that they needed. Wasn't anything that they needed. Then we move from there. The covenant with Noah. He doesn't ask Noah, you do your part and I'll do. He found favor with God. He trusted God, and God imposed on him once again. Said, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to save you in the process. He didn't even ask him, do you want me to save you? Are you interested in me saving you? Do you want to live? Or are you ready to go? So it was an imposition. So get a hold of this as we move from the covenant with Noah on to the covenant with Abraham. Similar thing, same thing. God doesn't ask Abraham, are you interested in knowing another God? Now, we don't even know exactly what took place. But God reveals himself because it doesn't tell us. God reveals himself to Abraham, imposes himself on Abraham and says, this is what I'm going to do. Now, just get a hold of this for a minute. God's saying, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a great nation out of you, and I'm going to bless you and your seed. We've got to figure out who that is. And that is probably one of the greatest issues that still lasts today, figuring out who that is.
What, the seed?
The seed, Abraham's seed.
Oh,
and so what we're talking about is that God has imposed this. This isn't a deal. This isn't and we don't use these words in our culture really. And so I think it really messes us up. And our whole understanding of the rest of the Bible gets confusing because we're thinking that we work this out with God almost. You know what I mean? That we've got to, just so many things.
What if the seed of Abraham
Well, let's
sowed
don't.
was faith?
Well, let's don't go there yet.
We got some- oh,
Yeah,
I got-
because I want to kind of bring us on through this, because I was just sitting there thinking I'm fixing to start going ahead of myself again, and
we can't screw it up. We can't screw up for any of us.
no, I know it, but still I'm trying to. So look, the verse 18. Let's see. It shall. I didn't put that there. Let's see. God said to Noah. Wait a minute. Where am I at? This is the sign. Now the sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. Now Canaan, we don't know when he was born, but Canaan was born pretty quickly. And see, time is very general there, so it could have been a few years. We don't know. But 19, these were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. Then 20, Noah began farming and planted a vineyard. And then here's that wonderful story of righteous Noah. So remember, there's righteous Noah, planted a vineyard, and thus began the problems for the rest of humanity.
Yeah, forget the car, Noah. Just let's go straight to wine.
Yeah. So he drank the wine and became drunk, uncovered himself inside his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it upon both of their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And let's see. Okay, where was I at? Covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were turned away so that they did not see their father's nakedness. And when Noah awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son had done to him. And so he said, "Cursed be Canaan." Now, Canaan was his youngest son's son. So I don't know how that fit in exactly, but he cursed Canaan. And he said, "A servant of servants he shall be to his brothers." And he also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Blessed be Yahweh," I believe, the God of Shem. So let's see. We could check that out if we wanted to and see. Blessed be the Lord. Let's see what that says right there. Oh, that's got too many deals on it. We don't want all that. Well, I don't know how to get that off now. It shouldn't be on there. There's settings somewhere that need to be turned on that Bible. But I'm assuming that is probably Yahweh right there. Blessed be Yahweh, the God of Shem. And let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem. And let Canaan be his servant. Noah lived 350 years after the flood, and so all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Now I want to go back and talk about this stuff right here just a little bit. Now, Ham was the father of Canaan. Now Ham and his folks went south. Africa and Canaan also went. You've heard of Canaan land, right? Canaan right over there we've got to the east of where Israel in that area. To the east over there, you have where Babylon is. You have where Iraq is today. You have all that area over there. Now this gets kind of interesting because he did not curse Ham, who the rest of the descendants are going down. In fact, one of Ham's sons is Egypt. He was also named. We'll find it in. Let's see, in this Mizraim, I think is what he's also called. But I'd always wondered, where did Egypt come from? Where do you get that Egypt? Well, he was one of the sons of Ham. So that was his name. And had you ever heard that? But some versions of the Bible say it and some don't. So it depends on, so the name is different, depending on how they translated it. And so the idea is that Canaan, now we look back over on page, you can look ahead to chapter 10. Let me do that. Chapter 10. This one doesn't give me 10. Yeah, it does at the top. Let me see. 10, verse 15. Well, I'm not finding it. Okay, here it is, where it says that Canaan became the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and then now look, Canaan becomes the father of Jebusites, Amorites, Girgasites, Hivites, Archites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, Hamatherites, the families, the Canaanites. Now, and the reason I say that, have you heard, these are all the people that God wanted out of that land because they were all idol worshipers. They were all awful people. They were just, these are the ones that Noah cursed Canaan. So all those people in Canaan, all the ites, it's just almost all the ites that we've always heard about, they came from those that Noah had cursed. So they're the ones that when God called Abraham out of Ur of the Chaldees, it was basically in that same area. They end up coming back, and then when they're going into the promised land, they've got to go in and rid all these folks that were all these ites that were in there, these idol worshipers and everything else. And then the other thing he says in back, I got to go back now to we're at the curse. Let's see. Wait a minute. Oh, here we go. Let me go back to right here. It said that blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Shem is going to be the one that continues the family line, the bloodline that's going to bring us Jesus. So Shem is that's where it's going to come from. Well, Shem, they become the Middle East. That's where Jesus is going to come, the Middle East. So we're getting a clue right here where it's going to come from. From verse 27, may God enlarge Japheth. Japheth goes to Europe. Japheth goes north, Caucasian peoples. And this is so fascinating to where it says, may God, verse 27, may God enlarge Japheth and let him dwell in the tents of Shem. What does that mean? Dwell in the tents. It's like if you're going to find the one who's going to bring us rest, go to Shem. You're going to find the one that brings you rest. He's not going to be a white person. Interesting, kind of. I mean, yeah, I'm using colors, but he's not going to be European. He's going to come from the tents of Shem. And so when you go to find Shem, and this sounds funny, but they would say it that way in the Old Testament. Let him dwell in the tents of Shem. You go find the tent of Shem and find what's going on, and they found the Savior. He's come from the Middle East. So he's not going to come from Africa. He's not going to come from the United States. Of course, the United States is not listed. But you understand what I'm saying? It's not going to be an Indian. It's not going to be an Australian. It's going to come in the Middle East. And so what it says, and let God will enlarge Japheth, Europeans, but let him dwell in the tents of Shem. Because that's where the Savior is, and we have lit. And it's bizarre because now you realize that this Middle Eastern, this is why, I don't know if you saw it at Reconnect the other day, but somebody got it back out. And you know what? I don't hate this. In fact, it brings me some memories of Sunday school growing up and everything. But there's a picture of Jesus in our Reconnect class. Beautiful long hair. He looks tanned. He looks like he's been on the beach. I mean, he looks so good. Kind of that olive complexion. Got blue eyes. And I'm thinking that pure blood all the way back to Abraham, all the way back to Adam. And this man, Middle Eastern as Middle East can be, he's got blue eyes. It's just fascinating to me what we do and what we're thinking.
Maybe it was eyes were blue because he was the first one to have the Holy Spirit.
Maybe so. But I just don't see it. But I just don't see it. But yeah, that would be, you know what? That'd be the only thing I could buy, Kurt. You know, if that. But anyway, that thought that he's this is going to be the one that brings all of us rest, and we're going to find him. Isn't it weird? In that little spot in the Middle East is where he's going to come from, and be able to trace the lineage all the way back to Abraham, and further, but all the way back to Abraham, and then isn't it even fascinating again? Because when we get to Abraham, we got a lot to talk about, but that all the Middle East that goes on, I still find it fascinating about all the news from the Middle East. It's just continually from the Middle East. This little.
All those ites.
Yes, and all the ites. The ites have given us problems. So there's where we go. Just wanted to show some of that. Oh gosh, we're a little bit past time. And let me do this though, while we're at it. In chapter 10 of Genesis, this is not something that you necessarily want to always go through, but it is kind of fascinating to look at. This is called the Table of Nations. It's not that the Bible gives it that title or anything, but it's been called that, and it's actually called one of the most historically accurate ancient documents that there is. This particular chapter, because there's very rare that they have genealogy type documents in ancient cultures. They'll find something somewhere that's inscribed on stone, but this ancient one is one of the best and one of the most accurate of not just biblical stuff, but of ancient history, because so many of these things they've found other documentation for. So it's kind of a fascinating chapter. It starts off by saying, these are the records of the generations of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And so he begins in verse 2, he tells you the sons of Japheth. In verse 6, he starts with the sons of Ham. And in there, see, now Ham was the father of Canaan. Canaan was the one with all the Jebusites, Hittites, and all those guys. And then also Mizraim, however you say that, was Egypt. And so all these nations that come through them. Where was I going with that? Nimrod. That's what I wanted to get to. That Nimrod became was a mighty man on the earth, and that don't get that confused. It was not necessarily that he was, because it says in verse 9, he was like a mighty hunter before the Lord. That's the way it says it, but that doesn't mean that he was just this mighty man that God was just so proud of it. It's actually, the idea seems to be that he was a mighty hunter with his fist in the Lord's face. And he,
wow.
Look at verse 10. Well, and we might as well touch on it because it becomes important when we get out of this chapter. He says, the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Babel, however you say it. And he went, in verse 11, from that land, he went into Assyria and built Nineveh and Rehoboth, and another city or two there, Nineveh, the great city of Nineveh, and other cities. And he's got some of them named there. And he became one that later we find that Lamech, this man that stood, no, wait a minute, I'm thinking of somebody else there. I'm going back before the flood. But Nimrod is also mentioned time after time in other ancient history outside the Bible. So now we start to get, there's where was it I read? Let me see. In back in Genesis, you don't have to go look at it, but back talking about Seth and Cain and Abel. Now look, this is speculation, okay? But they're saying that during the time that by the time Abel and Cain, now remember, you hear, okay, Cain was born, and then they bring their sacrifices to God and whatever, boom, boom, boom. Well, you don't get any ages there. You don't know how old they are, but they were grown men. So by the time they had men and whatever, the idea is that it would take in, he says, in more than, they're estimating that they may have been 100 years old, which I'd never heard that before, but I'm just throwing this out, that between Adam and Eve leaving the garden, having Cain and Abel, that they may have been around 100 years old, and that in that time there would have been easily, they've calculated all this out, to have had over 32,000 descendants at the time that Cain was cast out from God and going on. So we're talking, it doesn't take long once it starts to branch out. I mean, once it's like multi-level marketing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Once you've got 16 couples, and all of them have 5 kids, 10 kids, and then all of them go out and, all of a sudden, ka-wham, in just a couple of generations, it will explode like crazy. So, by the time here and Nimrod, they're talking about the great cities that they're building. And you're like, what? And so this is kind of setting the tone to go to the Tower of Babel. That it was great cities. There were a lot of people, and they determine, through when you get down through the end of this, because they also do the genealogy of Shem in here, and it go down to verse 32 at the end of the chapter, and it says, these are the families of the sons of Noah according to their genealogies by their nations, and out of these the nations were separated on the earth after the flood. Now, they were kind of separated in the nations, but understand there were thousands and thousands that came together to build. Well, look at chapter 11. Well, I'm not going to do this chapter, but just it says, now the whole earth used the same language and the same words. That's how it starts. So we'll find out they were all using the same language. And one reason why, when you go back and look at it, was, remember, they all lived so long? Well, they were all carrying that language, that same language, and it just developed and probably got better and better. And because you don't think about that, were Adam and Eve born with full language? And when you say born, they were created. So they were created functioning. They were adults. We don't hear anything about them being babies or anything like that. They didn't, they were functioning adults, and God spoke to them, and they spoke back. It's hard to, because everything we know of is learning, everything, growing, learning, and so. But what's fun here, you guys? Listen, we're moving right into things that will shape what you believe about current events right now. It'll shape what you believe about the Bible, what you believe about Jesus. It'll shape almost everything to come. Everything that you think about the law, how it was given, what it was given, what you believe about Israel. This gets really, really fascinating. So we've kind of laid some groundwork.